Hello and welcome to this edition of the DFS Sweatshop. I'm your host, the DFS Jerusalem, and you can follow me on Twitter at DFS Jerusalem. And today I'm going to be talking with you a little about lineup construction going into the Thursday night games and on into Sunday's football slate. This show is sponsored by Cherry Coke. Coke is it. Also by big, big lighters, Newports, whatever. Well, as you can see, I'm here at the crib, man, and I'm just finishing up checking out the Clippers and the Toronto game. And man, had a lineup, talked about it earlier, did not cash, finished at what, 175. Looks like the cash line is going to be just under 200. Dante Exum kind of screwed me, his little bitch ass, whatever. But really got good points from Lyles. But this is not an NBA. This is not an NBA talk. We're gonna get into that later on. We're gonna preview tomorrow's slate and really get into that too. But just wanted to, as I was looking at my lineups, because I put in quite a few lineups for this NFL Week 5, and of course the first thing I did was what I always implore you all to do, is to go in and check the Vegas lines first, see what games are going to be in the highest of the point totals, and get as much exposure as you can to the games where the players that are in them are in high point totals, and they're the ones that's going to do well. So what I started to notice was there's a few receivers that I had in there consistently, and this is my 5 wide. This is the 5 wide show where we discuss my top 5 wide receivers for the week, starting from the least to the best. And I'm going to give you a 6 receiver, one sleeper, that somebody that you might be able to use. Now, the first receiver that we're going to talk about, as I pull up my information, my notes, is Jarvis Landry. Now, I really like Jarvis Landry this week. We've got the Miami Dolphins. Let's pull up the game. We've got the Miami Dolphins at home against Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans have been pretty good against the run and the pass, and some of it is because they're a slightly above mediocre defense. The other is teams haven't had to score a lot of points in order to beat them. So I really believe that this is a matchup that Tannehill and Jarvis Landry can exploit. I like Jarvis Landry to get 7 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown, or 2. So he's somebody that I think you should definitely get in your lineups. The next receiver we're going to talk about is Steve Smith, the old man. Steve Smith is going to be my 4th ranked wide receiver on the weekend. He's somebody who I really think is gonna have a really good game. He's playing in the slot. He's kind of the only sure receiving threat that they have on the team. I mean, you have Mike Wallace, of course. You had Brashad Perriman, but those guys are like 9-route deep threats, guys. I really like Steve Smith this week. He's my 4th ranked receiver, and I have him 8 catches, just over 100 yards, and a touchdown. I like Steve Smith, and for the value, for what you're going to pay for him on DraftKings, $5,300, you can't beat that. You really can't beat that. My 3rd ranked receiver this week is going to be Julian Edelman. Now, we haven't seen much from Julian Edelman, but with Brady coming back and just them playing the Cleveland Browns, I think you're going to see Julian Edelman have a really good game. I'm talking like 11 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown. I like Julian Edelman this week. Now, my 4th ranked receiver is going to be Jordy Nelson. Now, Jordy Nelson is gonna really show as like a late slate hammer. He's somebody going to be playing in the Monday night game that if you need them points to catch up, you can throw him in your flex, because that's what you want to put the later games, that the last players play. You want them in your flex. I really like Jordy Nelson this week. I think he's going to go off. I'm a Giants fan, as you can tell from my previous videos. But when it comes down to DFS, I take the heart for the Giants and I throw it out the window. I really love Jordy Nelson this week. I think he's going to be pretty much 1A on my top play. And my top wide receiver play of the week. And don't say I'm a homer. Don't say I'm a homer. But let's look at when cats are due. Sometimes you got to start a guy and you got to give him the benefit of the doubt just because he is due. When you drafted in your season longs, this guy didn't make it out of the first 3 picks. So that's leading me to believe that I'm not the only one that understands this dude is one of the top 3 players, fantasy players, position players, so to speak, without mentioning the quarterback, in the league. And I think this is the week where he sets everything right. We saw some news coming out of the NFL where they were talking about watching defensive backs, playing them closer, and paying more attention to what's been happening after the whistle is blown when it comes to this particular player. But all that aside, let's just talk about raw talent. I really think this is the week where Odell Beckham goes off. This is the week where ownership is not going to be as high on him as it has been. And honestly, it really hasn't been like overly high. I think last week I had him in a couple of GPPs at just over 9%. So I'm looking at maybe a little lower than that, somewhere around that same region. And you gotta remember, Eli goes ham in Lambeau. So I really like Odell Beckham. He is my top wide receiver play of the week. And the cheapie that I'm going to be talking about, I like this cat. I really think this is the Golden Tate week as well. I think Golden Tate is going to have a really great game. I mean, I don't see him jumping over the moon, but I'm talking about if you want to get somebody that's going to be at low ownership for a very decent price, I really believe you can go with Golden Tate. This has been your DFS Jerusalem here live in the Daily Fantasy Sweatshop. I gave you my 5 wide receivers and threw in a 6th one for you. Start them, get them in your lineups, and let's cash out and get this money.